Alright, the articles I choose are focusing on how the US plays a role in international trade and how US trade policies affect itself. The first article is about one interviewee who owns a luggage store, talks about his views and concerns about the Biden administration's trade policy toward China. The second one is how US imposed sanctions against the Russian economy, such as blocking business with your diamond company, reducing imports from you, and reducing the investment in your country. The third one is stating the fact that right now the mortgage rate in US is surging continuously. I choose these three articles because the topics of these three articles are hot topics. The US trade relations with China, the Russia-Ukrainian war, and inflation problems that led to the mortgage rate increase, making it harder for people to buy a house. Then, another reason is I want to emphasize the comparison that the role and the status of the US international trade is completely different from the previous US we talked about in our class. We know that in our class, after the Revolutionary War, the US remained neutral during the Anglo-French War and used its manufacturing advantages to export a large number of goods to Britain and France. During this period, we saw terms of trade improve, our export prices rising, our import prices are falling. This export boom continued until Jefferson's embargo, as Britain and France no longer guarantee the right of American merchant ships not to be attacked. As a countermeasure sanctions, Jefferson declared all embargo. However, the current situation of the United States in international trade is completely the opposite. The current trade deficit of the US is very serious, which means that the US now imports a lot of goods from the world, especially China, instead of exporting goods. This is why the US trade policy toward China directly affects its own economy. From the first article, we can see that the Biden administration does not want to end the trade war totally. It still wants the domestic manufacturing industry to maintain strong competition with China, but only relax tariffs on Chinese goods in some industries. This extends to the fact that the trade policy towards China directly affects the current supply chain problem in the US. Since the manufacturing level in the US cannot meet the high demand of the American people and the price of cheap goods from China continues to rise, the overall price of the goods in US keeps rising. In this case, the Federal Reserve can only control inflation by raising the interest rate, leading to continuous rise in the mortgage rate, making it harder for people to borrow money to buy a house. The domestic economy is affected due to trade policies, and other contrast to Jefferson's embargo I want to mention. At that time, because of the embargo, US manufacturing was developing rapidly, and the US manufacturing capacity was able to ensure relatively stable prices. Finally, the role of the US in international trade is also different. Back to Jefferson's embargo, we were forced to embargo and take counter-sanction actions, but it's different now. Right now, US is a major importing country. The US can now initiate sanctions actively. For example, in the Russia-Ukrainian war, economic sanctions were imposed on Russia. This is what I want to talk about in today's video presentation.